Hi everyone, it's Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. I'm glad y'all are with me today. Today's video is going to be my June mid-month wrap-up, which is like crazy. Like my mind is blown. How are we already halfway through June? Which again, I say that in like every wrap-up video that I do, that I can't believe how quickly time is just flying by. So we're gonna be talking about the books that I read in June. I've had a really great reading month so far. As the little thing on my video says, I think I might have found my favorite book of the year. But you'll have to wait till the end of the video for that, because that is the most recent book that I've read. So that'll be the last book that I end up talking about, but it's been really great. I read 9 books in the first half of June, which is crazy. I've just been in such a good reading mood, and I've been like cranking out like reading. It's been so good, and pretty well most of the books that I've picked up have been really good, and I've really enjoyed them. I also read another arc, so I'll be talking about that on here. But yeah, it's been really good. So we're going to get right into it, because I know how much I ramble and we might be here forever. So starting out, the first book that I read in June is going to be Ante-Up by Christina C. Jones. This is the first book in her high stakes series. This is about our heroine Asha. She is a waitress at a casino, but she also likes to play poker, and she is playing poker so that she can get enough money to enter this really big poker tournament to win even more money. And she's doing that to kind of help her family out, because they're not in the best kind of situation. She's also trying to get enough money because she is trying to help her brother pay off his debts. She's kind of like like she takes care of the rest of her family. So she is at this poker table and she's playing poker, and she attracts the eye of this guy. His name is King. They end up having a one night stand together. And then like the next day or the next couple days, she finds out that this guy was actually her boss. He owned the casino. And he's pretty rude to her after their one night stand, and she doesn't take this very well, so she kind of like puts her foot in her mouth and gets in trouble with him. But they have kind of this like feisty dynamic towards one another, so he is intrigued by her and wants to find out more about her, so he hires somebody like a PI to like investigate her. So there's both of these characters have a lot of things happen in their background. Um, but I did enjoy this story. I gave 4 stars. I liked the chemistry between these two characters, and then he is eventually like trying to help her with winning money to pay off her brother's debts. There are some trigger warnings in this one. So there's death of a spouse. So King's spouse passed away. So that's why he's kind of investigating Asha, because he is reluctant to be with somebody again and trust them. And then there is also trigger warnings for suicide in here. This off page, it happens in the past. And then murder as well. You find out pretty quickly, like early on in the story, that Asha murdered her father because he was very abusive to her mother and not great to the rest of the family either. So there's this bit darker of a book. The only things I didn't really care for, I honestly was not the biggest fan of King in this one. I've come across people like him, like in my own life, and I just don't jive well with these characters. Like, he's very abrupt and like calls you out on your shit, which I mean is fine, but it's also like he's very much like his way or the highway kind of person, and I just don't mesh well with those type of people. Asha, I feel like, very well held her own against him, which was great. I liked a female character that was able to stand up for herself. But yeah, I don't know. King was just not my favorite, but overall, I found the romance of this, the spice was spicing, definitely. And the like Asha's character I really enjoyed. It was just more King that I was kind of meh on. So I did give this 4 stars and I did enjoy it. Then we have the arc that I read. This is going to be The Bones of Love by Megan Montgomery. So I requested this arc mostly because the cover, and I heard this was a priest romance. Not knowing that this was the 3rd book of a series. I have not read the other books of the series, but if you wanted to read this book, I think you totally could. I feel like I wasn't super confused. Like I wasn't missing a ton from the other books of the story. I may end up going back to reading the other books because I did really enjoy this one. So this one is about Gus. He is in the process and going to become an ordained priest of the Greek Orthodox Church. So with them, he can get married, but he has to be married before he actually becomes ordained. Otherwise, once he becomes an ordained priest, he has to be celibate and alone for the rest of his life. So his friend, what is her name? Decca. Sorry, it took me a while to find that. His friend Decca knows this about him and doesn't want him to be alone for the rest of his life. She also kind of has a crush on him. So she proposes that they get married so that basically both of them don't have to be alone the rest of their life, because she has no family and her grandmother passed away and she's still living in her grandmother's home. So she's also kind of alone. So it's a mutual kind of situation for both of them to combat their loneliness. But in doing so, both of them have crushes on each other, but they're also like too shy and to make those crushes known to each other. So this is definitely a slow burn, slow burn romance. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So I did really enjoy the friends to lovers kind of aspect of this. My issue was that the lack of communication between these characters was pretty frustrating, and it took a while for them to actually make known that they were in love with each other and that they wanted to be together sexually and romantically. So that was a bit frustrating, but overall I really enjoyed their romance and their dynamic because they are talking about building like the foundations of their love. Like this story was definitely more unique. Because it's not a ton of like passion between them. We're not having like the last book, like a one night stand, like they just see each other, they're attracted to each other, and they just decide to sleep together. This is a much more slow build up, and they form their love from friendship first. They also form their love because of mutual respect. There's a lot of spirituality in this book as well, which I feel like I'm a very spiritual person, so I really enjoyed that aspect because this man is a priest. There is a lot of religious talks in this book, so if you're not a big religion kind of person, don't really care for like talking about God and things like that in your books, this may not be the book for you. Which I'm not religious, but I didn't mind that because Gus is, like I said, he's Greek Orthodox, and then Decca is like complete opposite. She is actually Wicca. She calls herself like she's a kitchen witch. And so like their beliefs are like totally opposite, but they appreciate each other so much. They like sit down and take the time to learn about each other's beliefs. And I really loved that. I thought that was really cool. And then by the end, we start to have more of like a passionate type of love towards each other, but they took the time to lay those foundations in order to have that type of relationship. So I really appreciated this book. Like I said, it was probably one of the more unique romances. I went into this like priest romance. I'm expecting like forbidden, which is like my bread and butter. I love a good forbidden romance. That's why I really love priest romances, because of the forbidden aspect of it. So I went into this thinking it would be a very forbidden, taboo kind of romance, and it wasn't. It was much more wholesome and beautiful. So I really liked it. It was good. And then I read Deuces Wild by Christina C. Jones. So this is the second book in her high stakes series. I believe there is, it sounds like there's like a novella or like short stories like in between these two books. I did not read those. I just went in right into this one. This one is about Alicia. She is the bodyguard for King. And Alicia comes from this like strange and mysterious background. She was like kind of trained to be this like assassin type person. And then she was lent out on loan to King's family and to become his bodyguard. And so there's some like mysterious, there's a murder that takes place. And then she ends up finding this young girl who all of this woman that was murdered and this girl have a rose tattoo that is very similar to a rose tattoo that she has, that she got from her background of becoming an assassin. So she's trying to investigate why these people are here in her life now. In the meantime, she's also getting these strange dreams about this sister that she totally forgot that she had. So she's has these like repressed memories that are actually starting to come to the surface now. And then on the, because this is a romance, on the romance aspect of this, we have Cree, who is he's a policeman, he's an investigator, detective, that's the word I'm looking for. And he has been assigned these cases, and he knows that they connect to Alicia. So he's trying to help Alicia out, but then also get her to confess things to him so that they can try to figure out what's going on together. But of course, she doesn't isn't really forthcoming with a lot of stuff towards him. She has a lot of trust issues because of her background. So I gave this 4 stars. This was a very suspenseful story. I honestly kind of liked this a little bit better than the first book of the series, Ante-Up, mostly because of the plot with this one. Like, there are so many big things that happened in this story that kept me continuing to read just to figure out what was going to happen next. A lot of shocking things happened too, that like I listened to this on audiobook, so I'd be like driving my car and then something would happen and my mouth just like drops. Like, there are so many things that happen, and I really enjoyed the slow buildup of Cree and Alicia's romance, because they kind of she's very reluctant to be in a romantic type relationship. So they kind of start off with just scratching an itch with each other kind of thing. But I really enjoyed their chemistry together. And like I said, just the plot was so good. And I'm very intrigued because then Christina C. Jones has a book series called, what is it called? The Roses? Or something, which happens, it talks about more of where Alicia's background is from, because she's a rose, and this like secret society where they like train women to be either assassins or they train women to be basically like courtesans. So I was very intrigued by that. So I might end up picking up that other series because it continues on. It's in the same world and continues talking about this secret society kind of thing. So I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really good. Then we have Sinful Vows, by Lillian Harris. This is the first book in her Messina, I think it's saying that correctly, I don't know, Messina crime family series. So this is a dark romance, mafia romance. We have our character, Elsie. She is in captivity. She and her friends were on like going on a vacation, and they were kidnapped and placed into sex trafficking. So she has been in this for a while, like a long time, and she's just surviving. So her and her friend are at this house, and our hero of the story, what is his name? Michael, shows up in a car at their house because he has words with the people that own them. And so Elsie decides to make a break for it. She escapes the house and jumps into his car in hopes of trying to get to like police or whatever, to try to escape the situation that she's in, and hoping to be able to bring back police or somebody to find her friend and help her friend escape as well. However, she does not know that Michael is in the mafia, and he doesn't actually stop anywhere. He ends up going back to his home, and she ends up getting trapped in his home and not being able to escape, and he finds her. But Michael is in a situation. His father is still the head of the crime family, and is wanting to step down, but according to like their laws or whatever, he can only become the head if he gets married. He is not wanting to get married for love because he has seen how much love is a weakness, and it has destroyed his specifically his older brother. So he proposes. He kind of forces her into a marriage with him in exchange for her freedom, and he tells her that she has to be married to him for a year, and then he will let her go, and she can go find her family, and she can try to go find her friend. So she's not happy about this, but she is hopeful that this will be a better situation than what she was in before. And then Michael also has a daughter that he dotes on, that Elsie becomes close with. I gave this 4.5 stars, and I left it at that because I may end up bumping it up to 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. This honestly gave me a little bit of at least how the writing was for this story. It gave me a little bit vibes of Twisted Pride by Cora Riley, which is one of my all-time favorite books in general, but also favorite mafia books. So it was just, I don't know, there are certain aspects of it that gave me those vibes, and I loved it. Because Michael is this very assholey, dangerous person. You know, he's a big gruff mafia guy. He will not hesitate to kill people, but he is such a sweet man to his daughter. He loves his daughter with everything that he is. He is wrapped around her fingers. And then as he and Elsie start to learn more about each other, he finds out more about what Elsie has been through and what has been done to her. And the more that he finds out about her, he is very careful with her. He is very much about consent with her, which I love. And he also becomes very protective of her, and just seeing their romance bloom was just, it was so beautiful and so sweet. And I also just really loved their chemistry. Like, they definitely have a like sexual chemistry together, and it was so good. There's a lot of like tension between them before they finally like end up having sex together, so I really enjoyed that. It was a really good story. I really enjoyed it, and I do plan on continuing with this series. I just will see when I get to that. Then we have Hold Me While You Wait by Kimberly Brown. This is another single parent romance, but this time we have both a single dad and a single mom. We have Somia, who is a divorced mom, and then we have Xander, who his baby mama didn't want their child, so he has been the sole parent for his girl since she was born. So these two characters meet when Xander's daughter gets bullied at school, and Somia is raising her niece. Her niece ends up protecting Xander's daughter and standing up for her against these bullies, and she gets in trouble because she uses like physical with these bullies. Ends up having to have detention, that kind of thing. But in that doing so, those two characters become instant best friends. So that puts Xander and Somia in like their orbit together, and they're seeing each other more often, and they're both very attracted to one another. So they decide to start dating and just kind of see how things go. I give this one 5 stars. I loved this romance. It was just, It was so good. I really, really enjoyed all of the characters in this series. There was some characters like the exes where they both of these characters end up showing up and causing some problems for them. But I really enjoyed how things end up working out by the end. There's definitely a lot of character growth all around in this series, or excuse me, this book, which I love character growth. I love it so much. Somia is just this badass single mom, and she has her own business, and she is just absolutely amazing. I loved her. Xander is totally book boyfriend material. He is such a gentleman, and he treats Somia like a queen. I also absolutely love how he is with his daughter. He talks to her and does like daily affirmations with her to help make her more confident. And I love seeing that. I love seeing their romance bloom, and then the dynamics between their kids together as well, and then trying to figure out stuff how to make things work with their exes. And it was such a good romance, and how these characters, they felt like real people, and they put effort into making their relationship work. It was just, it was so good. I loved it. Like, I loved this story. Absolutely loved it. Definitely want to pick up some more Kimberly Brown. It was so good. Then I read Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in her Chestnut Spring series, which I've been meaning to get to for basically forever, because I read the first book of the series last summer, I think maybe even last June, with plans to continue on in the series. And then here we are, it's June again, a year later, and I'm just now getting to it. So, this is a small town romance, cowboy romance. Single dad, Cade, is a rancher for his family's farm, and he has his son, and he is desperately needing a nanny for the summer for watching his son. And he hasn't been able to find anybody, so his brother's fiance suggests her best friend Willa, because Willa is going to be in town and honestly needs something to do. So he very reluctantly hires her. She is not what he really wanted in a nanny. He's honestly wanting like a nun to be his nanny. Also because he's very attracted to her, and this frustrates him. This definitely gives Grumpy Sunshine vibes. Kate is definitely a grump, and then Willa is just this like free spirited, go with the flow, happy go lucky kind of person. And she has so much fun. She says right off that she actually hasn't spent a lot of time with kids, but her and his son hit it off almost immediately. She loves spending time with him, and then of course, like I said, it's a romance, so her and Cade are both very attracted to one another, and they eventually start to have a romance with each other. So I give this one 4 stars. I definitely understand there's definitely hype for this book and this series in general, and I understand that hype. I really enjoyed this one, and I especially enjoyed the dynamic with Cade's son Luke. I don't know, there's something about how it adds like another layer to the story having children with a romance, because she is also like forming a bond with his son, and she even starts to get like Mama Bear vibes. Like she goes into Mama Bear, like trying to protect him, and then Cade sees this, and it makes him fall in love with her even more. And it was so cute. Steam on this is definitely going to be high as well, because there's some great steamy scenes in this one, and it was just so good. And I do plan on continuing to read this series sometime, because we all know how bad I am with continuing with series. Then I read Irresistible by Melanie Harlow. This is the first book in her Cloverleigh Farm series. This is pretty similar to the last book. This is another single dad and nanny small town romance. We have Mac, who is the CFO of Cloverleigh Farms. He is divorced and he has 3 daughters, but he has had a crush on the owner's youngest daughter for a long time. He and her name is Franny. Franny is also their like part-time, sometimes nanny. So they end up giving in to their desires for one another when, after she is babysitting for them, she ends up getting kind of snowed in at their house and she can't go anywhere, so she ends up staying there, and they give in to those desires. And but they don't actually start a relationship yet because Mac is a little bit reluctant to try to start anything. Number one, because it's, taboo, forbidden. He shouldn't be sleeping with his boss's daughter, that kind of thing, and he doesn't want to take advantage of her. But then he's also, because of everything that happened with his ex, he's reluctant to try to find love again, and he's afraid. So it takes a little bit for them to actually form a little bit of a romance. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. It was good, but I was a little bit disappointed with this one because I have heard so many good things about Melanie Harlow. I don't know. I liked the dynamic. I liked the chemistry between these two characters, and I liked the dynamic with the children as well. Because his kids absolutely adore Franny, and they end up wanting them to be together. But I was kind of annoyed with both of these characters individually. Mac gives very mixed signals towards Franny. Like, he's hot and cold with her. He wants to have sex with her, but then pushes her away, but then gets mad when she does what he asks, and it just kind of was off-putting. And then Franny has like 27 and she still lives at home, and she is wanting to do things on her own, but her family is very protective of her because she had a heart condition when she was younger. And I don't know, I just kind of got annoyed with her at some points, because I'm just like, if you want to be on your own and do things, then you should just do them. And it was kind of annoying to me that it took so long for her to do that, because she honestly, how this character was written, she came across as like early 20s, even like teenagery, rather than like a 27-year-old kind of girl. So I don't know. It was fine. I am hopeful maybe if I skip to her next series, because I started with this series because then she has a spin-off to this series that I thought I should probably read this one first, but I may just go ahead and skip to that one because I've heard better things about that series. I don't remember what that series is called, but it's got like I know one of the titles is like Ignite, maybe. Because like I said, I've heard really good things about Melanie Harlow, so the fact that I just didn't like this one as much was kind of disappointing and was a bit of a letdown. So then we have a little bit more of a non-conventional book that I would typically read. I have How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. This is nonfiction, so yay me that I finally did my goal of reading a nonfiction book. I've had this goal that I've been trying to read a nonfiction all year, and I finally get to one. So go me. But this one is our author of this book is basically just talking about his points on racism, and pointing out the differences between racist thoughts, ideas, and anti-racist. And he's just talking about different points about that. So I gave this one 4 stars. I did think this was very thought-provoking, and gave a lot of really good points to it. However, I was left a little bit, I don't know how I want to say it, like, I almost felt like this was unfinished in a sense, because I'm also just kind of left like wanting to know more, I guess. Like, his whole point about and what he pushes is policy change, and policy change is the only way to make our society anti-racist, which I don't necessarily disagree with him with that, but I just feel like like I said, I just wanted a little bit more from this. So I am very intrigued by this, and I want to continue being more well-rounded with my reading and read more diversely. So I do feel like I want to pick up more books on racism, to see if that kind of helps me with my feeling like I need more kind of feeling. I don't know if I'm describing that correct, honestly, but we'll just go with that. So, then we finally get to the last book that I read in the first half of June. And honestly, this book, like I said, might be my favorite book of the year. It was so good. So that's going to be You and Me by Tal Bauer. This is a contemporary romance. This is an Achillean romance. So male. This is about Luke. His wife passed away like a year ago, and him and his son are not in a good place. They are, his son actively hates him. They don't talk. They're basically strangers living in the same house together. And Luke has finally had enough, and he's like desperate. He doesn't know what to do. So his son is in football, and he ends up going to one of his son's games, and he runs into Landon, whose son is also in football. And Landon suggests, hey, why don't you volunteer with the other parents? And we help like set up all the games and do all this other stuff for the football team. And he's like, why don't you volunteer? And then that way that will give you more exposure around your son and show your son that you support him. And hopefully that will kind of help to mend your relationship with your son. So in doing so, Luke is not a football person, doesn't really know anything about football. And so Landon and him become quick friends. Landon's kind of helping to show him the ropes, and they end up wanting to spend more time together. And it comes to a point where Luke can't stop thinking about Landon and wants to just be around him all the time. Landon makes him so happy. He feels like Landon has kind of like just been this light to this darkness that has kind of overshadowed his life. And then he realizes that he might like Landon more than just a friend. So they start to form like a romance, and it was just, again, so obviously I gave this 5 stars, and I'm gonna try not to cry talking about this book, because I definitely cried reading this book. It was just such a sweet and heartfelt story. There is steam to this book, but it honestly was more like minimal. I didn't really care about the steam as much because their relationship was just, it was so good. Like I said, it was so sweet and heartwarming, and seeing not only the relationship between Landon, but then seeing Luke and his son's relationship start to mend and get better was just, I'm gonna try not to cry. It was so good. I loved this story so much, not just because their romance, honestly, they felt like soulmates. Like, it had such a deeper soul level to it. Like, they loved each other to their very souls, and I loved it so much. It was so good, like absolutely amazing. And this was my first Tal Bauer book. I think I've tried to read a Tal Bauer book before, and I ended up DNFing it. I don't remember which one it was, but I was blown away by this one, and I definitely will continue to read more Tal Bauer because of this story. It was amazing. I honestly, like I said, this is probably going to be my favorite book of the year, which is like, who knows, because we're only halfway through the year, but it's definitely going to be one of those like top contenders. It was amazing. So that is going to be it for this video. Those are all the books that I read in the first half of June. If you like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And definitely leave a comment down below with what are some of the books that you've been enjoying in June so far. I really like hearing from you all. But that is going to be it. I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.